One candidate is trying to make climate change one of the core issues. That is Andrew Romanoff, Senate candidate in Colorado, who had a video go viral recently, although it was criticized quite a bit as well. And when we showed you the video last week, we asked him to come on the show and talk about the issue. And what do you know? Here he is, Andrew Romanoff. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Thanks a lot, John. I appreciate it. Why am I following a Komodo dragon and a velociraptor? What should I read out of that?
We're a weird network. I'm not going to lie to you. It is weird. So thank you for coming on the show. We really enjoyed the ad. I do want to issue one correction. I had sort of been recollecting when we covered that I thought that Cory Booker had made one of his sort of classic sort of dad joke type jokes about the ad. I had misremembered it was Cory Gardner, a very different person. So yes. Apologies for that mistake.
No worries. You should apologize probably to Cory Booker.
Probably. Well, I'll ask him to come on. So look, you made the ad. It's about climate change. For the most part, it's talking about the present day, the horrific extreme weather events and all of that. The beginning is a sort of futuristic scenario. Tell me about the choice to portray a future that might happen if we don't deal with the climate crisis seriously.
Well, it's a future that is happening now. Look, if you're one of the families who have been devastated by this climate crisis, I don't think that the scenario we portrayed at the beginning of that video looks too unrealistic. The truth is, millions of folks around the world are being uprooted from their homes, as you know, John, and turned out of storms and floods and droughts and heat waves and wildfires, forced to flee. This is a crisis, and it's not a distant threat. As we said, it's here, it's real, it's now, and we need to change course.
You know, we showed in our coverage of your ad, there were a few articles talking about it that said, it's an interesting ad, but is it wise to run based on fear, to fearmonger in this way? What do you think about that? To describe your portrayal of what's happening when it comes to climate as being akin in some ways to the other ways that politicians have tried to run on fear about things like immigration, terrorism, things like that.
Well, we're running on the hope of a Green New Deal. I support that plan. My opponent, one of the opponents, at least in this Democratic primary, John Hickenlooper, does not. Cory Gardner does not. In fact, Governor Hickenlooper, who is a Democrat, describes the Green New Deal and Medicare for All and a number of other progressive priorities as akin to the work of not just Karl Marx, but Joseph Stalin.
Wow.
That's terrifying. We're never going to get the changes we need if we continue to echo the talking points of the opposition. So I'm glad that more than 300 elected officials across the state have endorsed our campaign. I'm glad that we have built the sort of broad grassroots effort we're going to need to beat Cory Gardner. But first, we've got to tackle the folks in our own team who are thwarting our progress.
So let's say you win, you get into the Senate. What do you plan to do when it comes to confronting this crisis?
But this is the fundamental moral test of our time. It is an existential threat, as you know, John. So we've laid out a platform that includes ending the $650 billion a year we're spending now in direct and indirect subsidies for oil and gas and coal, putting that instead into renewable energy, into energy efficiency, transforming our electrical grid, our transportation system, our building codes, putting millions of Americans to work, building a clean energy infrastructure. The good news is, we can both protect our environment and grow our economy at the same time. Colorado is leading the way. The trouble is, of course, a state can't save a planet. We need an international commitment to this cause, and I want the US to lead.
And one of the big goals, for instance, in the Green New Deal, it says by 2050 we should be net zero greenhouse gas emissions. When do you think we should reach that target?
As soon as possible. I think we could get there sooner. I'd like the US to lead so that we can help other nations meet that target as well. If you go to andrewromanoff.com, you look at our priority page, you'll find a very ambitious agenda. A lot of folks said, well, this is too fast. We can't do all of this. I think they underestimate the ingenuity of the American people. They don't understand, for example, the original New Deal, when we faced a pair of existential threats, both the Axis powers and a Great Depression. And we summoned the courage we needed to transform our economy, to meet that threat, to save civilization itself. These are the stakes. And what we need is a group of women and men in the United States Senate with the courage of our convictions. I wish that the folks in Washington understood that. We need to move them out of the way.
So look, you're obviously looking ahead to some extent against Gardner, but you've got this primary. How are you, outside of obviously the big differences between you and the opponents on climate change, in other issues, how are you seeking to differentiate yourself?
Well, on Medicare for All, which I support, Governor Hickenlooper opposes. We've laid out an agenda here based in part on the experience I bring. I was the Speaker of the House, as you know, John, in Colorado for 4 years, led the Democrats here to our first majority in 30 years. I also spent the last 4 years leading a mental health organization on behalf of families who face mental illness or drug addiction, or in some cases suicide, which devastated my family. And I am not content to stand by while more Americans struggle and suffer and die on account of problems that we can fix, or on account of the indifference of an insurance industry that bases its profits on its ability to deny as many claims and exclude as many sick people as possible. It's a good business model, I suppose, if you're an insurance company. It's a pretty lousy model for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Governor Hickenlooper opposes Medicare for All. I support it.
Well, part of that business model, both for the insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, but for fossil fuel generating companies as well, is to donate to political campaigns. And there's a lot of politicians that still take massive amounts of money from both of those industries. Not all of them are Republicans. What do you think about Democrats who still take significant amount of campaign finance dollars from the people that theoretically they are willing to regulate, perhaps not to the same extent that you are, but they do speak out against these industries while many of them are funded, at least in part, by them?
Yeah, it's a conflict of interest that we're avoiding because we don't take contributions from the fossil fuel industry or any other special interest groups. I should acknowledge, Sean, they're not offering. If you're a big oil company or an insurance company or a drug company, you've got other choices in this race. John Hickenlooper scratched his name off of the No Fossil Fuel Money pledge. Very hard for me to understand how you will portray yourself or act as a climate champion if you're subsidized by the same industry you're supposed to be regulating. And it's no great surprise. Governor Hickenlooper sued communities here in Colorado that tried to restrict fracking and protect their public health. He literally, as you can see in our ad, drank the fracking fluid. So if we're serious about replacing Cory Gardner with a climate champion and leading the fight for a Green New Deal, we've got to win this Democratic nomination. And I hope that folks who are watching will help.
And where can people find out more about your campaign?
What a friendly question. So folks can go online at andrewromanoff.com. andrewromanoff.com. They can watch the ad, they can contribute. We're trying to raise as much as we can before the end of the year because we're up against not just, as you said, the Republican Party, Cory Gardner, Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, who's about to come and campaign for Gardner here in Colorado, but also the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, which recruited Governor Hickenlooper into this race, even though Hick said he didn't want the job and wouldn't be good at it. I believe him, by the way.
That is true, actually. I'd forgotten about that. Thanks for watching The Damage Report. What if you could take control of your internet experience for a cup of coffee a month? Well, if you head to nordvpn.com/TYT, you'll be able to connect up to 6 devices to NordVPN's military-grade encryption for $349 a month. If you go now, they'll even throw in 4 free months and NordPass, the new password manager app. Go now.